Clockwork Crab, written by Corlett Novis. This story was originally pulled from r/shortstories on Reddit. However, it can also be found on medium.com. By the fifth day, the storm had not stopped, and the emptiness became piercing. The rain spattered so gently on the roof that I could almost hear the slow rusting of the ceiling panels, which were currently fading into a pale orange hue as the moisture seeped down its near invisible cracks, dripping quietly onto the ground. The shack was cold. The wet air was taking its effect on my body, much like it had done to the roof, and I could feel the stiffening of my joints. The slowing of numerous gears and cogs within my head were making me dumb, but there was no more cleaning oil left in the can by the windowsill, so I would have to bear the slow oxidation as long as I could until the rain stopped. And even then, the calm would need to last for the 9-kilometer walk into town. I would need to fill my time until then, alone. As I sat down on the half-torn sofa, a few stray strings poking out from the side of the cushion, I gazed at the rusted door. Tiny specks of blue had begun to grow on its gritty surface, blooming gently like buds. The brightness of their color pierced the orange, muddy gloom of the dark enclave. If I had lips, they would have smiled. Straining the apertures in my hollow eyes, I gazed more closely, and a picture of a small, blue pockets of lichen began to emerge before me. An entire world of life was growing from the decaying metal frame. With sadness, I realized that I was doomed to never understand such beauty, for I myself was not alive. I was merely a construct from some far-gone time, and my purpose and the purpose of my people long outlived. Nor could I ever hope to restore any of this lost purpose. For to have a purpose, I had long known, is to have a soul, and machines do not have a soul. I would have sat in this loneliness for many hours, unable to stir myself into movement, were it not for the scratching I began to perceive from my good, relatively rust-free ear. With a faint creaking, I turned my head to the right, and I saw something impossible. A small blue crab was stuck halfway through a crack in the metal wall of the room, its limbs moving slowly as if though it were running low on fuel. At first I was unable to believe what I was seeing. The nearest beach was 5 kilometers away, and the journey would seem much farther for a small creature. After assuring myself that my head was not becoming too rusty, for rust will often cause problems with cognition, I became more certain of what I was seeing. Heartened once again, despite my lack of anything to call a heart, I pried the crab free from its trap and held it to my eye for inspection. The creature had lost several limbs in its long travel from the shore, likely picked away by predators as it had been making its miraculous journey through the open plains to the east. Along its back I saw a faint growth of turquoise moss, gripping to its slippery shell. If the creature was in pain, it did not show it. Instead, it tried to free itself by using its last remaining claw to grip my fingers. Like the crab, however, I did not feel pain. But unlike me, the crab was alive, unable to resign itself to death as I had. The rain had not stopped, and I listened to the soft patter of death on my roof as I gazed transfixedly at my unexpected guest. Then, slowly, I began to put together an idea. That is, if the hollow cognitions of a machine could ever be called an idea. By the seal, near the empty oil can, were a few precious pieces of ancient scrap metal, galvanized and waterproof cogs and strips of steel, just the right size to replace the crab's lost limbs. I had been keeping these scraps, which were very rare these days, with the intention to sell them in town at some later date. But with the storm spitting above me, I realized that day was likely to never come. Placing the crab in an empty tin box and having secured the lid to prevent its escape, I collected the scraps and walked crookedly to the workbench. When I had finished my work, I had found myself feeling rusty. My body had grown stiffer and my mind had become slower, but the sleek, silver limbs I held in front of me seemed a fair price to pay. I had never crafted anything before with such skill, and they were beautiful. The tricky part had been to build them so that they would respond to the direction of the crab and move by its mental command, just as its real limbs had done. But having them secured to the crab with rubber straps, I quickly saw the success of my work. The crab, perhaps surprised, began to move its new limbs quickly, snapping its new claw and spinning the gears in its new legs. After some time, it slowed down, and it dawned upon me that it may be in need of more fuel. Moving as quickly as my rested limbs could take me, I fetched the fuel from the counter and poured some on the tin in front of the crab. It moved away. Of course, a living thing could not consume machine fuel. It would require its own fuel. Living fuel. Gazing at the only other source of blueness in the room, I moved towards the door and scraped the flecks of lichen from its face and collected each piece into my hand. Returning once more to the crab, I placed the flecks of blue growth into the opposite corner of the tin. This time the crab ate, slowly gripping each piece in its claws before feeding its mouth. Soon, it had eaten all the lichen and the door was bare. I was faced with a choice. 2 days had passed, and the rain had not stopped, and the lichen had not returned on the surface of the door. The crab would be hungry, and I was resting. I could face the 9-kilometer trek towards town, though I would likely become petrified to thrust half a kilometer outside of it. There was a good chance I'd be saved by some fellow construct from the town after the rain had stopped, but then again, there was less and less oil going around these days. It would have been an act of great kindness to remove that much rust from my hollow corpse. On the other hand, I could brave the 5-kilometer walk to the shore. Looking at my companion in its metal tin, I hesitated. I would last the first 5K, but the walk back would not be possible. I would be doomed to rust beyond hope of repair if I even attempted to restore my friend to its briny home. To my slowing mind, the choice still seemed clear. One of us would have to die. But I had already made this choice the moment I freed this creature. I prepared to leave. The metal umbrella I had fixed over my head provided good protection from the rain, but the humid outside air was rusting my body quickly. And I quickly realized that I would not have made it into town had I chose to walk the other way. The sparkling ocean came into view. As it emerged, I marveled at its beauty with a touch of sadness, for my ears had rusted too severely and I could not hear the breaking of the waves on the shore. I had wanted to hear it one last time. As I approached, I could feel the creaking gears of my body beginning to finally fail as I gently lifted the lid from the tin. Realizing that I would not make it to shore, I stooped in the sand and dropped the box, which half sunk into the sand. Unable to move, I watched to see if the crab would emerge and make its way back to the ocean. As my vision blurred with an orange tint, I saw the glimmer of a metal claw as the crab emerged and ran sideways to the open water. With the rusty orange hue closing in on my mind, my final thoughts were these. All good things are wild and free.